Thank you very much for everybody for joining us this evening. As a quick introduction, I'm a father, husband, practice leader, equine vet, practice owner, and have been since 2005. Unashamedly a James Herriot inspired vet, and always wanted to be a GP, and have, I hope, in the 23 years or whatever that I've been doing it, proved that you can thrive in general practice. So I'm particularly passionate about this subject and know that we've got work to do, and hoping that this evening's session will put a highlight on some of that. As you saw from Sophie's slide, the sort of headline is that general practice needs to be showcased as a chosen career path that has opportunity to be satisfying and rewarding for vets and nurses. I've certainly witnessed loads of people who would fit well into that bracket, but there are clearly lots of people that are struggling to, and we need to work hard to do something about that. I'm joined by an excellent panel of four who I'm going to ask to introduce themselves, and I'm going to start, if I could. I'm going to do it in the order on the paper I've got, because the screen keeps shifting around. So Gudrun, fire away.
Hi, I'm Gudrun Ravitz, and I'm currently a Group Veterinary Officer at Pets at Home, and I'm a past president of the British Veterinary Association. But just to give you a flavour of my journey, I graduated in 2002 from Liverpool, and my journey was very much through general practice in all kinds of different types of companion animals practices. And my last companion animal practice was in charity. But then my career, I would say, was slightly anarchic and unplanned, but the general practice route gave me that ability to try different things, gave me the confidence to go in different routes, and has led me on a variety of different journeys that have been exciting and rewarding. So for me, the general practice route was always the route I wanted to go, right from that James Herriot time. But I think we have to acknowledge that it's a very different time. At one point, general practice was the destination, but now we have multiple destinations. And what we need to do is make sure that general practice is that rewarding destination that people want to reach, and that we recognise it, celebrate it, and support it. And hopefully that's the conversation that we're going to have tonight.
Excellent, Gudrun, thank you very much. We're getting a little bit of feedback, so can everybody just check they're on mute when they're not speaking? You will find that will give everybody the amusement of me opening my mouth with nothing to hear, but at least it'll make the sound quality good. Great. If I could move to Ian now, and if you'd like to introduce yourself, please, Ian.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for inviting me. So my name's Ian Futter. I'm the Chief Veterinary Officer for the Scottish SPCA, which sounds very grand, but it's quite ordinary, really. My route into general practice, I graduated from Glasgow in 1992. Never had any intention other than going into general practice. I went into two mixed practices in the Glasgow area, very mixed, and really enjoyed it. I love the variety. I love the fact that the practices weren't too big as well, so I got to perform lots of surgery, which luckily I really enjoyed as well. And I think I would say general practice for me gave me a confidence to try new things. I didn't feel as though it had to be perfect all the time. And luckily in those days, clients weren't expecting it to be perfect all the time. And they were, I think, grateful that you could do something that wasn't too expensive for their pets. So I feel as though it gave me a really good grounding for what I went on to do, which was moving into shelter medicine, working for a charity now, and applying good general practice principles in a very pragmatic way to animals that don't have owners. And I've been doing that more or less ever since, and training and supporting the rest of my team to do that. So whilst I'm kind of in parallel with general practice now, I think it shares very much of the same ambitions, which is to do the best for every animal in our care, in as pragmatic and sensible and realistic way as possible, bearing in mind some of these animals don't have owners, but they are going to have owners. So we can't have huge expectations of what they're going to be able to manage. So, and I think I really enjoyed balancing the needs and expectations of the owners with what the animal really needed done. So yeah, I would say I'm a real enthusiast for general practice, and I think actually this is a really good time to go into general practice, because there's a real move now to go back to the kind of ethos that I had, I think, when I was first in general practice, which is to be willing to have a go and try things, and maybe make up for that gap, that kind of skill set gap that may have appeared a bit in general practice, I think, over the last couple of decades. That's me.
Brilliant, Ian. Thank you very much indeed for that. Alison, we'll move straight on to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. So I'm Alison Speakman. Not dissimilar from Ian, who I know quite well. I graduated from Glasgow in 1991, just the year before, and spent a short period of time then in mixed general practice. Having had a bit of an issue with my back, decided that I really needed to go down the small animal route, and at that point completed a residency in feline medicine, followed by a PhD at the University of Liverpool. At that point, it became crystal clear to me that actually what I really loved doing was general practice. And back I went. And apart from a very short spell in industry in the early 2000s, I've been back in general practice since 1998. So really over the last 25 years, I've been in practice, and that by far and away is where I'm at my happiest. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. For me, just that whole range of being able to communicate with people from all aspects of society, and to be able to help them, whether it's that client who is struggling to afford, where you can, provide some really good pragmatic care, through to your client who it's, absolutely everything at all costs. So there is a range of things we can provide, and the ability to recognise that range, I think, is a skill that is very much the home of general practitioners. To be able to recognise, where those options come in and where they should be applied to get the best result for health and welfare of that animal within the context of their owner. So I do feel very passionate about that. I absolutely love the role I'm in. It's given me so much job satisfaction. In my spare time, I'm the current president of BSAVA. And for me, the whole volunteering role that I've been able to do whilst in practice with BSAVA, again, has built up just a whole other network of community and friendship within the small animal profession that is just really moulded well with the GP career. So yeah, I'm a big advocate.
Excellent, Alison. Thank you very much. And screeching in at the last minute, because I trapped her completely yesterday and insisted that she join us, is Kate Tunley. So Kate, over to you.
Yes, thanks for that, Chris. So my name's Kate Tunley. I am a first opinion practitioner and director of a small animal independent practice in Berkshire. I graduated in 2000 from Cambridge, did a couple of years of mixed practice, and then did a rotating internship before predominantly moving to small animal work in the southeast, mainly hospital environments. I made my way up to a head vet role. I managed to complete GP certificates in practice in medicine, surgery, and practice medicine and practice management and administration. Done some volunteer jobs. I've been out in Grenada, I've been to Uganda, I've been to Goa. So managing to put all of the skill set from general practice right out into the sort of the charity sector. About 5 years ago, myself and 3 colleagues left our practice to set up our own practice. A couple of years we were setting that up, I actually moved back into the referral setting. So I spent a bit of time at Fitzpatrick Referrals and Hamilton's Referrals. So back to life on the other side. And it gained some insights as to the sort of being able to contribute to their recruitment and their management discussions from a general practitioner point of view. But a little bit like Alison, very much a general practitioner at heart. So for the last 4 years, I've been full-time director at Mulberry House. Practice has grown. I love the challenge of first opinion work. I think the development of client relationships, patient trust is something that you don't get in any other setting. And I love supporting, assisting my team and sort of encouraging them to feel the same as I do.
That's made me feel very small. Fantastic. Great introduction. So
reading from the script that I wrote last minute at about 11 o'clock.
No, it's brilliant. I love it. So we've got a fantastic panel of 4, and I can see we've got some really good people in the audience. Can I just introduce everybody? I know everybody's aware of the chat function on these things, but we're going to use the chat function to gather in questions, which will be put to the panel when we get to that stage. But also, the RCVS are going to put up useful references as they come up and as they're needed. And so do keep an eye on that chat function, because there will be links and things that you can go to as you need them. We're really pleased to be joined by Rick Harris, who is founder of Customer Faithful Workforce Summit and helped gathered a whole load of information before that. And he's just going to give us a presentation now with some of the ongoing thoughts. So over to you, Rick.
Thanks, Chris. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I conducted the research that we've just been asked to provide just a few minutes context really for tonight, just to show where this particular ambition, and indeed all of the ambitions in the action plan, came from, and to really demonstrate that the voice of the profession was heard. So it dates back to 2021 now, and a number of focus groups and interviews that we ran with vet professionals and vet nurses right across, from those who've just started in practice to those that have been there for years and years, and some had left. We had amazing response, way more than we could speak to. So we spoke to as many as we could right across the UK. And it was important, I think, for those participants that this research was run independently, so they really could say anything they wanted and be truly honest. We got so much out of that, hundreds and hundreds of comments and insights, which are all collated. So from all that data, we took that to the Workforce Summit that Chris just mentioned, to share with a wider group of stakeholders. And it was framed, that workshop, I'm conscious many of you wouldn't have been there. It was framed using this approach called design thinking, which really way of looking at issues and problems and thinking, how might we change that? And in the starting point of all of the discussions, you can just see in that picture, people working away, was very much from that point of view. So that kind of refined some of the insights that we got from the front line, as it were. And from that, the outputs of that summit became the inputs for the next step, which was the creation really of the action plan. The action plan itself was, again, a longer process, necessarily because so many stakeholders, as I've learned within the college. And I think more than that was a real determination to create a program, an action plan that was integrating lots of initiatives rather than just piecemeal stuff. There was so much stuff was already going on in the college, of course. And this action plan wanted to really condense all of that together. And that took time, and no apologies, I think, for that. It did take a number of months to make that work. So what you'll see now is the 6 key themes that came out of the research and into that summit. I won't read them all out there, but those were the 6 that went into the summit and that have been developed within the action plan. And you'll notice that we have 7 ambitions and only 6 themes. So the next slide kind of shows that there is a good link between the themes and how the ambitions are shaped. But as I said, they needed to be integrated, and that's why they're not a direct match. Really around leadership to make all of this happen in the first place. But the real slide I wanted to show you tonight was to give you a flavour of what some of the specific things were mentioned right in those focus groups around the topic you're going to tackle tonight, around general practice being a chosen pathway. And there were 3 particular themes that I'd least like to throw in tonight. You may well tackle more, but 3 I think that were particularly relevant. One was around recruiting and qualification. a number of comments suggesting, as the top one says, that you get out what you put in. If you put a group of people in who are happy to be a generalist and are set up to be that way with that ambition, then you've got a chance to get those people out again. And those are going to be people. They're not super vets, with apologies to the TV program that's stolen that label. And also a number of people actually said, I felt, these were particularly younger ones, saying, I really feel that my qualification, it kind of prepared me for residencies and careers in academia and specializing in certain things more than for general practice. So that suggested even from the outset that maybe general practice as a chosen career all the way through wasn't necessarily what was in their mind. The second one was, unsurprisingly, about pay and career progression. We had a dedicated group to nurses, and they made the point very clearly that they felt that potentially that the pay gap between nurses and specialists, and indeed the general vet role too, is risking that role, because the draw towards specialism is paid better, bluntly. There was also some comments around whether the change from the sort of traditional practice to the corporates, whether they had a slight out of that. And a few ideas. I threw that one in just to get the creative juices flowing for tonight, as to one suggestion as to how that might be addressed a little. And then the last one I want to throw in, keen to get you all through to get yourself working, is specialization itself. And I will read these two quotes because I thought they were so important. As we become more specialized, we end up referring much more, sending it out, and these skills the staff in the practice. And they felt that we should be multi-skilled as well as in general practice. And they're saying, I didn't expect that to happen, and it's not what I wanted practice to be like. And the second comment, which is a slightly different angle, is that there's no carrot anymore. As a vet surgeon, there's nowhere to go. Everything that stretches you gets referred. It's useful to have vets in management roles and business development roles, yes, but there's not enough higher roles in clinical practice on the ground level. And you can see that already just from those, whatever it is, 6 quotes, and I could give you dozens, that they kind of link together and join up. And I'm sure you'll find that as you go through tonight. So I just wanted to put those real voices of actual quotes in front of you tonight, so that you have that voice of the profession ringing in your ears as you get started. Thanks.
Rick, thank you very much indeed for that. That's a really helpful introduction. And we're now going to move to the discussion piece and hear from our panelists. Because we're going to be limited for time, inevitably, what I'd like to do is I'm going to ask the panelists to go through slightly succinctly what they think, try and distill really what they think we should do about the issue that we're addressing. And I've heard so much passion about general practice that I'm really keen for it to be a very positive interaction, and keep them succinct, because after that I'd like us to have a discussion amongst the panel, and then we'll start introducing questions from the chat. So when we have the discussion amongst the panel, good old-fashioned hands up, I think, and we can have a decent interchange. It's much more difficult, as you know, over Zoom and remote means than it is in person on these things, but we can do our best on that. Just a very brief thing, and I'm definitely not a passive chair in this one. Obviously, I'm one of the people who is passionate about generalism and being a generalist. I think it's critical that we have what I call the veterinary Swiss Army knives, the sort of stamp collectors of skills and knowledge, who are able to turn themselves to a huge variety of breadth of situations and be really helpful to clients and their animals, and play an enormous part in achieving optimal outcomes for them. I think the word specialist generalist in our context is actually an oxymoron. I can see why it works in general practice in human medicine because of the way that they work in terms of with the hospitals. We don't actually work in that exact way. And there are areas of the country that aren't as well served by referral services, and where finances don't allow referral as frequently as that can happen in the NHS, where everything's financed. So I think there is such a huge need for generalists. And so I'd like us to focus as we go through. I'm going to go through the four of you on the positive things that we can do to address the problems, rather than rehearse some of the problems that Rick's mentioned, some of the things that we've gathered in the research. So I'm going to fire straight away with you, Gudrun. And as I say, keep it short and sweet. Let's hear your opening thoughts, please.
Thank you. And I think it is about being that generalist. And actually, we need to explain and carve out what a generalist is. It isn't the same as being a general practitioner in a hospital, because actually we do a lot more within our generalist practices. So I think as a profession, we have a job to educate the animal owners and pet owners of what generalist really is, and actually how specialist that generalism is, and what we can do in that interaction with animal owners and pet owners. Because ultimately the pet owner, the general practice is that engagement piece with owners, animals, owners and keepers and pet owners on the route. I think going back to the slides that were just shown up, it is about being happy to be a generalist. But that's all about if you have the right role model, the right hygiene factors, you see it as a career progression, it's celebrated as a career progression, and you see the reward. And I think we need to do more it as a generalism, showcasing it, making sure that it is a rewarded pathway. And that is a little bit about showing the role models and celebrating that engagement with people, because ultimately as a generalist, you are there through the whole life cycle of that owner, of that pet, that your animal that you are seeing. You see the whole life cycle, and you are a part of that community and a part of that person. And I think because we now, which is wonderful, we've moved from James Herriot, where the destination was generalism, we've moved to lots of destinations we can go on a spectrum of ability, and that's to be celebrated. But what we must never lose is we start as generalism, and that is hugely important. And that is hugely important to the people who are behind those animals and those pets that we treat. And we need to re-embrace that, but also we've got to showcase what generalism is in this sphere of things that we can do. So I think some of it is back on us as the profession to showcase that, rather than just showcase the shiny new that we can do.
Brilliant, Gudrun. Thank you so much. That's really to the point, and really got us thinking straight away. So Ian, over to you.
I echo all of that. I suppose what I would do then is maybe take a slightly different angle. I think maybe it would be really good for students, undergraduates, and actually as postgraduate education as well, to be exposed to general practice more. So if we had general practitioners how would you actually diagnose this or work this case up in practice? And realize that GP vets have particular skills at getting to the root of not just the clinical problem. So a cat isn't just a hypothyroid case, it's a cat that lives with its owner and has all these special needs linked to it, rather than treating it as that animal in isolation, which probably tended to happen even in my undergraduate education, I must admit, although I don't think I had the same issues that students seem to have now. But I think that could also filter through to our postgrad education. All the CPD events we go to, it does tend to be specialists that are delivering it all. And I think there's a place for GP vets to be much more involved in that. We just have to swallow bravery pills really and say, no, I'm not an absolute expert, but I do know what I'm talking about. And let's have a discussion. And I think increasingly CPD is a lot more fun when it's a discussion than somebody lecturing and telling us what we should be doing and making us feel inferior if we're not doing it that way. Actually, how would you manage this case? And what ideas have you got? And I think that would be a great way of showing students and young vets just how exciting being a GP vet can be.
Ian, brilliant, thank you. You remind me very much of when I first graduated. I was a farm vet, and BCVA meetings, you used to go to the presentations, which were fine, and they were quite good for sleeping off a hangover. And then you'd learn most at the bar, where everybody was own up to the things that had gone wrong and tell you how they put them right. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that's so critical. Alison, over to you.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on some of what Ian had said there with the, if you start off, we all start off our career as students, and, the mindset that you come out of university from into your first role, which for the majority is still general practice, is very much a good starting point. So, I think that there is in progress this encouraging change at the moment. I know the RCVS are looking at insisting that more of the intramural rotations now are in first opinion practice, rather than the situation where it was always, in the vet school referral hospital. So there is now going to be more compulsory first opinion part to that, which I think is a really positive move. I also think it is our role as general practitioners to showcase how much we enjoy practice and how much we get from it when we have students for EMS, because there is nothing worse than being a student on EMS who comes away from a week at practice thinking, oh my God, they were all stressed, they were all miserable, they didn't like it, there was this, there was that. So we have to take responsibility for that as practitioners. You're never going to enthuse somebody if you're not enthused. And then I think, once students have graduated into practice, you need that reason for people to have job satisfaction in there. So having some form of kind of clear pathway where they can see that they can progress in whichever way they want. And it's not one size fits all. You will get some people who want to do a certificate, who want to really home in on one particular aspect, who want to really shine in one area. Equally, you will get people who want to stay with that very broad spectrum overview and just become recognized for being really good at what they do. And a shining example for me is one of the guys who I work with, and he's 38 years graduated. He doesn't have a certificate to his name, but I tell you what, I would trust him with my life to deal with my dog. He will do the spinal surgeries, he will do the TPLOs. He is, really, really good and proactive with a phenomenal knowledge base. But he's never been one of those people who felt he's needed to be a referral specialist or to have all that behind his name. For me, that paperwork doesn't matter. But what is difficult is that because he doesn't have that behind him, there is a tendency not to recognise just how good he is. So I think there's an element that we need to develop, and here I think on practice owners and managers to look at how they are going to step back and recognise and reward achievements and what constitutes achievement if it's not, a certificate of excellence, because some people don't have the finances, the personal opportunities, the time to go down that route. And so it's never going to be a situation where you can recognise and reward people based on just the certification only. There are a lot of other skills that need to be taken into account to recognise people. Otherwise, people will never progress or feel like they're progressing within a practice situation.
Thank you very much for that, Alison. That's excellent. So, Kate, over to you.
I mean, I think when Chris asked me to think about this last night, I think I sort of sat back and thought, why do I like being in general practice? That's because that's probably as good a starting point as any. And overwhelmingly, I think the biggest thing is support of people wanting to go into general practice and trying to keep them in general practice. I think it started with me at my vet school placement. I had an absolutely belting foster practice. I thoroughly got supported. I was encouraged to ask questions. They enjoyed their job. And for me, that really set me going in the small animal world. Apologies, Chris, I hate to say it, my equine experience wasn't quite so good, but it made a difference. As a student, I was in the way, I wasn't having things explained. And I think starting at the beginning, getting vet school students enthusiastic when they're going into general practice, in part, I think a structure from vet schools coming through, but I think us as general practitioners have got a real responsibility having these vet students coming in, as Alison said, to showcase the general practice as a profession and as a career choice. Interestingly, we have a vet student at the moment, and I asked her sort of opinion on how it's approached from vet school, and she said there is an element at the moment of you do your general practice, but if you want to be really good, you then go and do your internship and your residency. And I really feel general practice is an important career choice in itself, and the skills that you need to do that are different. When I did my internship, I realised how lucky I'd been with my first practice in the level of support. I think when you're in a referral environment, there's a huge amount of support there, and that probably is slightly lacking in general practice. And I think as general practitioners, getting new graduates, young graduates through, I think, it's very easy to say, oh, well, they should have been taught this, should have been taught this. Actually, general practitioners, we do the job, we know it, we live it, and I think encouraging younger vets to come through, they need that support, and putting systems in place for vet school students, having a mentor in the practice where they find out from that vet student what they want to do, what they want to achieve, and so they have a really positive experience. I think gives them a positive feedback on general practice. I think young graduates, again, having a mentor system in place, and maybe training the mentors as well. We've all been through general practice, but how to support people, and I think having a system in place where having younger graduates in the practice, having a mentor role, us being trained into how to do that, really can influence people's enjoyment of general practice. I was incredibly lucky with my first job. There was a mentor there. She'd mentored multiple new graduates, and I'm sure that's still a big reason why I love and I'm incredibly proud of being a general practitioner. Now, as an employer, I think we are, I'm on the other side of the fence now. I'm in the recruiting and trying to hold on to staff, which I think is probably the biggest problem we're seeing in general practice at the moment. And I think we need to accept that what vets want and need has changed over the last, probably since I graduated, last 20 years. Gone are the days of the 8 till 7, 3 nights a week on call. I think we need to be listening to what vets want and what vets need. And I echo Alison. I think it isn't one size fits all. I think some vets want to progress, and they can do that very comfortably in general practice with the right support, whether that be from senior vets in the practice or from referral centres as well. I think being able to work with referral centres rather than just sending things to referral centres, I think is going to be a real thing in keeping people in general practice. They can become really quite skilled general practitioners without having to go down the residency route. And as I say, I think as general practitioners, we have a real opportunity to showcase what we can do in general practice. It isn't just vaccines, it is a complete career choice. And I think if we can get the vet schools highlighting general practice as a genuine career choice and making it attractive to vets coming through. It's interesting, the comment about finances, because I'm certain that referral surgeons are earning more. I don't know any of my friends in the veterinary profession who went into being a vet to make money. Most of our vets that we chat to in practice, we have a very open policy, work-life balance, and most of them want to do a good job, and I think being paid enough is right, but being able to be supported in clinical, non-clinical support to be doing a good job in general practice, I think is, to me, overwhelming the feedback we get from our vets.
Kate, thank you so much for that. And one of the things I've been saying for a few years now is that absolutely all the vets and nurses that I've met their priority in coming into the profession was not, or the professions was not to make money, but to do a job really well. And one of my concerns has been that I think in some of the environment we get with this, the recruitment situation is that people go home feeling they've not done the job as well as they'd like to have done, and then the satisfaction drifts away, and then the whole thing falls to bits. So we've all in our careers so far, one of the joys of being a veterinary surgeon is that you absolutely guarantee yourself a career of lifelong learning. And so we've learned a great deal through our careers. And I've heard about showcasing generalism, which I think is really critical. And within practices, I can see that happen, but that's quite limited in terms of the number of people we can be exposed to. So I'd like you all to think and come back on how you think we can showcase more widely the career progression and the sorts of satisfactions that we're all enjoying. And also just to pose a slightly provocative question, I guess, on the structure of practice, the traditional structure of practice, where you might have had practitioners within the practice who are 50, 40, 30, 20 in their 20s, and therefore you had that natural flow of mentoring and coaching. I look at some practices and I look at and I see that their oldest vets may be in their 30s, and they may be struggling because they're still trying to hone their skills, as it were, and they're finding people not that far below them looking up to them as mentors, and I understand exactly how that could be stressful, because now I'm in my 50s. I love it, but I do find that a struggle. So now back to the panel on those sort of two things. Who'd like to come in first?
I'm quite happy to kick off that one, particularly on your second provocative question. And it is an interesting one, because we know that job satisfaction, which falls into retention recruitment, is about a number of things, and role models is one of those, as well as being comes into the idea of fair reward. We talk a lot about pay, but I think we should talk about fair reward, because that actually acknowledges what people's reasons for being there are, and it isn't just purely financial. But coming back to that role model, mentor, coach piece, and I know what you're saying, Chris, of the old traditional model was you follow in the footsteps of, and there is somebody there to help you. And actually, I'm not sure it's healthy to always look backwards. What we do need to do, which I think the profession is doing, is actually let's look what coaching and mentoring actually means. And we can do that in very different ways. We've traditionally looked and said, well, if you've been in practice for 20 years, you're a great coach or mentor to this person. And they may well be, because they've had lots of life experience in general practice, but they also may not be. So perhaps we need to start looking at separating out that clinical coach and mentor from a more traditional coach and mentor in terms of life skills, role modeling, structure, career progression. And they can be two very different people. And I also start to think that we need to look at those as skills in their own right, rather than just being rewarded for being there a long time makes you a good coach and mentor. So I think we can start, as I think the profession has done, start to look at these kind of the courses around these sorts of skills, and really accept that actually that is a progression for somebody in practice to be that clinical coach perhaps, and somebody else can actually be that coach in terms of their career progression, that personal coaching for other areas and well-being and satisfaction in the practice. And a clinical coach doesn't necessarily have to be that person in the practice. That can be a cooperative coming together to say, actually, over here is a person who does a laparoscopic spay, and that is something that people in my practice want to learn. And certainly, I work with Vets for Pets, and that's something that we try and do, because we have lots of people who can share knowledge, and perhaps we have to come together more to share knowledge, and that comes to actually pragmatic treatment knowledge as well, rather than looking always upwards. Why don't we learn from each other more? So I would say let's look forward to how we can do coaching and mentoring differently, and accept they are skills in their own right. And as a profession, we need to aid people to have that in their practices, rather than just saying it's on experience.
Excellent. Thanks, Gudrun. Anybody else like to come in on Gudrun's points? Do you agree with her, or think there's a different way of doing things?
If I can jump in, I do agree. I think having a structure where people can get mentoring and support is probably a really important thing. I think very much traditionally the pathways that people see are from a clinical point of view. So you do your certificate, or you become a specialist, or you develop an interest in dermatology or cardiology. But I think going back to the slightly more holistic support of vets in practice, one of the big things we've been chatting about recently is non-clinical development as well. And I think externally as well, there's so many courses out and about there to allow staff in practice to develop their skill sets on a non-clinical basis and find a need practicing clinical coaches because they enjoy the teaching side of things. So it's allowing and supporting them to develop in ways that work well for their personality types as well, rather than that traditional, I work my way up and eventually I become a partner because I'm the oldest person in the practice. Actually encouraging directions that each individual vet has, they then get the job satisfaction out of it as well, rather than it necessarily being that traditional pathway.
Brilliant, thanks, Kate. I know, Ian, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kate's made a really good point there, and I suppose more eloquently said what I was going to say. But I would also say, I think, to me, it's a team element. So we can actually be mentored by the team, and that includes nurses as well. I mean, I think I probably learned more from nurses in practice than I did from the vets. I mean, with many of the vets, sadly, I think I learned how to not do things. And I think the other thing I was going to say, because as vets, we're all drawn into this because we're a bit perfectionist in the way we do things. And I think we all know that, well, ultimately we have a 100% failure rate in as much as all our patients eventually die, don't they? And hopefully we've euthanized them before that happens. But I think not being individualist, and I think that's the emphasis here. As GP vets, we're part of a bigger team, and we're essentially all involved. The pet in front of you just at this moment, but it's the practice that's caring for this animal. And I think that can be for many young vets in particular, and I think increasingly probably needs to be a way of encouraging people to stay in general practice, because the environment that the environment that the team creates is something that means people want to feel part of that community. And it is almost, I know it goes back to the old-fashioned view of what a vet was, but we are very much part of the community that we're in. And I think encouraging students not to see that you're not expected to have all the answers and you're not supposed to make all the decisions, but you are actually part of a team that's there to help you with that, and not be fearful of admitting that you're getting it wrong. And I totally get why some people want to go into specialist practice, but I would say I think that it probably suits the temperament of most of the students that I meet to be GP vets, to be honest.
That's encouraging, I have to say, because certainly as declaration of interest, I guess we're an RVC training practice, and a lot of the students we meet have aspirations to be specialists. So and we try very hard to convert them. Alison, did you want to come in on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gudrun made a really, really good point about the whole mentorship, because I think students are still, and you've just see to come out with this kind of pre-assumption that you've got to be more than just a GP, and how often, the role I'm doing at BSAVA now, the number of times I bump into people and say, they talk about being interested in volunteering or whatever, and usually the next words out of their mouth are, but I'm just a GP. And that it's sad for me to hear people say that, because there's no just about it. Being a GP is an incredible broad skill that, to be fair, I can have chats at meetings with people I know who are specialists, and we'll get onto a subject and they'll just hold their hand up and say, oh, I know nothing about that. And yet as a GP, you can have a really good discussion about absolutely most things in small animal practice and be pretty well up there. So, for me, I'd be more inclined to say, you're just a specialist. Actually, I'm pretty decent at most things. And that's not blowing my own trumpet by any stretch of the imagination, but that goes across the board for general practitioners. Is you have an absolute multitude of skills that take some balancing to do it all as well as you all do. So I think for me that education piece, it's not all about being a specialist that proves how good you are. That's a mentality we've got to get away from somehow. And I think we all have a part to play in that. from the educators through to us as practitioners to the specialists. There was a couple of things in the comment before that I caught on the chat where a couple of people have said, you know, sometimes they feel there can be almost a bit of a toxic element comes down from some referral practices. We've had students, which is really unfortunate, and I hope that doesn't happen often. But you know, this kind of looking down your nose at a general practitioner really is not helpful for the profession, full stop.
Thank you very much for that. And one of the ways I try and illustrate it when I'm discussing with students is that we've done really well at showing people what it means to be a specialist, and it's in many respects very much easier to describe, because your specialism is narrowing your interest but becoming better and better and more knowledgeable in that interest, whereas generalism, for a start, it's difficult to make a description of a generalist, because we're a kaleidoscope of different people with different skills across such a broad way. But it's generally that sort of inverted triangle where we're gathering more and more skill sets, if you like, in lots of different areas required. But we obviously need so many generalists. I was going to lose my thread for a quick second, and then in terms of highlighting to people what it means to be a generalist, where are we getting it? How do you distill what generalism means over specialism within a veterinary context?
So I think I'll kick off, but for me, the generalism is absolutely, we are the first part in that owner engagement, whether that's pet owner, animal owner and keeper, whether that's on farm or where that is. We are that first port of call to the engagement to do the right thing for that animal and that owner at that time. And that's the right thing by the health and welfare of the animal, and it's also the right thing for the need of that owner with the animal, obviously having the health and welfare at the forefront. And I think the part of being a generalist is that holistic approach. We look at the whole thing. We take you through that journey of that animal ownership, focusing on all the bits that matter in that engagement, and that's the skill. And we can work that through to the level that is needed and give the right advice to the right person. We don't go down that one specialism rabbit hole straight away. So I think that is doing the right thing for the animal owner, for the animal at the right time, and doing the best that you can do for everyone involved.
Great. Ian, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, well said. I think it's about life care, and I would say it's quality of life care, and it's the long haul, not the short fix. So we're going to be there for the whole of that animal's life, hopefully. So we're caring about what the animal's going to be like in years to come, not just in the next few days or weeks or months. But we're also really interested, and I think we're a key part of that human-animal bond relationship, and we pick up skills that specialists don't really need to have, because they come in, they save the day, and then the animal leaves again. Whereas we're there to help the owner come to terms maybe with caring for an animal with a particular condition, and keeping that relationship going over hopefully the whole length of the animal's life. And sadly, in my role, I see mostly where that's gone wrong. And the animals have been relinquished into the care of a charity because that relationship has broken down, or the owner couldn't manage or afford whatever it was that the animal needed. So GPs, I think, are key to keeping animals in the loving homes that they need to be in.
And thank you. Alice introduced a thought to what you're going to say. I mean, one of the things I think is so critical in general practice, and in fact I don't think you can be a good general practitioner without it, is your non-clinical skills. And I actually think that your non-clinical skills in generalism are as important, if not more important in many occasions, than your clinical skills. So yeah, adding that in, what do you think, Alison?
Yeah, well, you've kind of preempted my conversation a little bit there, Chris, but I absolutely agree with what Gudrun and Ian have both said, in that for me, we are very much the thick base of that triangle, and that whole assessment of the situation you're dealing with. And one of the things I always stress when I have students on EMS and they come into the consulting room with me, and I'll say, well, where do you think we should go next? And more often than not, I will get the answer of, we can bloods, we can x-ray, we could offer referral for X. And it's very often that conversation then is, what do you think is right for that client? Are there any other options? And it's that non-clinical skill of being able to have that open and with your client to find out what are going to be suitable options, and dare I bring the dreaded word into it of gold standard. We have this thing where people automatically tend to think, well, what's the best? Well, it depends what your definition of best is, because for some animals, the best thing is pragmatic care. And it's not in their interest to refer them and save them for 2 weeks at all costs. And it serves neither the animal's welfare or the owner's best interest. And that, I'm not suggesting that happens a lot, but it's being able to assess that situation and say to the owner, these are the options, and these are the options for these reasons, and give some guided information so the owner can make an informed decision based on that, and not that automatic assumption that, do you know what, I don't know the answer at the moment, so I'm going to refer you. So there's a huge skill in that part, and so many of our owners and patients can be managed within practice at that level. And it really probably is only the tip of the iceberg that yes, we'll need a education and self-development within a general practice setting, regardless of whether that involves a certificate or not. And for the purpose of clarity, I'm not knocking certificates. I have a certificate in my cert AVP. So but equally, I appreciate it's not everybody's wish to go down that route. So yeah, I think that ability to look at pragmatic contextualized care, particularly the current cost of living issues that we're facing, is becoming ever increasingly important. And there are fewer and fewer people going to have that luxury of going to a specialist. So do you know what? General practice is going to become more and more and more prevalent in the next few months to years. So we better all be good at it.
Thank you, Alison. That's really valuable. And Kate, I'm going to put you on the spot slightly on the sort of non-clinical skill element of being a generalist, because I do feel that in many ways you could get away with being a specialist with not necessarily fantastic non-clinical skills, because others can do that for you, maybe in a hospital setting, but in a general practice setting, I don't think you can get away with this.
Yeah, I would agree that a general practitioner requires they are different. I think, having got a consultation and you've got an hour for that consultation, and so you've got a whole load of time, and in no way disrespect to referrals, obviously, but as a general practitioner, you've got 15, sometimes 20 minutes to be able to get all the information you need, not only clinically, but the situation that client is facing as well. I agree with Alison. I hate the phrase gold standard. I much prefer the phrase textbook, because I think one of the skills that you really need to develop in general practice is that ability to assess the situation holistically. You have a patient, you need to try and work out what's wrong with the patient, but you also need to work out the right thing for that animal, that client, their finances, their emotional situation as well. And I think the skills as you say, the non-clinical skills there on having difficult conversations, time management, developing client relationships. Discussions in finances, I think, are a huge one that vets are really uncomfortable doing, but it is part of our responsibilities to how to do that. And I think once an animal's gone into a referral setting, the client's kind of already expecting to spend a huge amount of money. And as a first opinion, I think a lot of, us being the first port of call, I think a lot of the time we're the only port of call. Actually, most of our cases don't end up in a referral setting. We talk about a triangle, most people stay on the step at the bottom, because those sort of non-clinical skills in practice, I think, are what makes a good generalist. A good generalist is the ability to ask questions, but genuinely listen to the answers and work out an appropriate care plan for that specific patient, rather than clinical symptoms. Does that answer your question?
Yes, brilliantly. Thank you very much indeed for that. Now, because I'm a bloke, I can't read and think and say things at the same time and listen to other people. So I've asked Deborah to keep a watchful eye on the chat and try and see whether there are things coming through. Deborah, have you got themes coming through that you feel that as a panel we should chat about?
So the chat box has been open to everybody, and everybody has been commenting on several things. There doesn't seem to be, well, there are some questions which I think people are answering. Let me just have a look for you, 1 second.
The chat box seems to be filling up now. You've said that.
Yeah. So, how do we explain to owners the extent of what we can do, and how do we help them understand that GP is more than they get on the NHS?
Brilliant. Who'd like to start with that? That it makes a really good point, because we had lots of discussions in various committees at the Royal College about the use of the word GP, and the fact that the public very often then see us as the same as a human GP, which of course is not the case, and yet primary care clinician or something doesn't really sort of cut it. Gudrun.
Yeah, and it is interesting, isn't it? And I think that's in our power to show. It's to share and show. So when we are in practice, I think we shouldn't be shy of taking people around our practices and being very proud of them. We shouldn't be shy of showing our facilities. And a lot of that is engagement in communities. And I know, lots of people have done brownies meetings, church hall staff, school staff. And actually, it is just normalizing what happens. So those open days, if we have the ability, people are coming in for surgery for the first time with their animals, particularly in an in-practice setting, let's show them what's happened. We can all do virtual things on our websites to show what an average day is. With a mobile phone, we can actually do that in 5 minutes now and put that on our social media. I appreciate social media has its problems and it's often not that easy, but let's look at ways of going behind the scenes and just celebrating it. Let's do day in the life of our teams, our nurses, our veterinary receptionists. Let's be a bit more bold in actually showcasing what we do, because it's within our gift. I suppose, we can have that whole conversation around, is general practice the right term? And I think what we have to be careful of is trying to find a new title that we think will solve the problem. The title isn't going to solve the problem. That engagement and actually that role modeling and showing what we do and standing up and being proud for what we do is going to solve the problem. And I appreciate those are words and it's really busy out there. But I think if we could all go and just engage a little bit more, whether that is, like I say, just doing some social media videos, let's just show what we do ourselves and be proud of what we do.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Gudrun. Ian.
Yeah, I think my instinctive response to the question actually is, I think most owners already know that they get a really good deal from their vet. And I don't think they even necessarily call us general practice. I think they just know us as their vet. So I think they're well aware that if their animal needs surgery, it'll probably get it next week at the latest usually, whereas it could take months, if not years, for them to get their own surgery done. So, most conversations I have with people revolves around, I wish I got the kind of same level of care that my dog gets. And there's already a lot of it in the media on television. I think people that are watching these things already realise. But I mean, I do agree. I think we should be emphasising what people do really get when they come to a practice, and then we're not just there when the animal's sick as well. We're there for the whole life, and there's a lot more holistic things. And I agree with previous comments, things that we could be involved in, particularly with behaviour as well. I think a lot of people struggle on with that and don't even realise they can go to their general practice and find solutions to that. But I mean, I think we're doing an okay job actually. Often, I mean, I know some people might disagree with me, but most of the people I talk to already seem to know what good deal they get.
I agree with that, Ian. I think a lot of people what vets in first opinion can do, but I think Gudrun has a really good point, is we can show people a lot more. When we first opened, so we opened about 4 years ago, and we offered people tours of the practice because we didn't have many clients, so we had the time to do it. And the number of people who were, when they came out the back, as it were astounded as to the facilities we've got. And it's a great practice. I'm incredibly proud of it. But our facilities are what I would consider normal facilities for a good general practice. We've got a separate cat and dog ward, there's dental, there's x-ray, there's theatre, but they were bowled over by the facilities level that we actually had as a general practice. And I think actually clients aren't necessarily aware of what is out the back. To them, they see the consulting room and then their pet gets taken out the back, and they don't necessarily know that. And actually making that visible to them, either by taking, as I say, when we were quiet at the start, we took them around on tours. They absolutely engaged with that. On our website, we're now getting videos of, a day in the life of your pet having a dental. So there are video links now where they've actually got a video journey of a dog coming in for a dental, or coming in for a spay, or coming in for a keyhole procedure. And when they get their pre-op instructions, they get a link to that now. So they've got a much better engagement and idea of what actually happens to their pet. And the feedback we've had from clients from that has been really positive, that they actually feel part of that journey. They feel part of the experience. It bonds the relationship, and it extends the team from the practice team to the clients being part of that team as well. And overwhelmingly, essentially, you're all trying to keep that animal as happy and healthy for as long as possible, and then treat it as safely and competently it isn't. And I think Gudrun has a point. Social media, whilst it has its pros and cons, in that situation, sharing what we are able to do, it gives a huge amount of reassurance to clients, I think, as well. But I was astounded how few of them actually really understood what might be out the back.
Thanks, Kate. Alison?
Yeah, probably not got a lot more to add than that, other than, certainly with, Kate and Gudrun's point of doing the videos and the open days. We've done both of those at the practice and found that, there are a number of clients who are very much, wow, didn't realise you did that. So there's certainly a place for us showcasing, not being frightened to showcase ourselves. There are also, I think, those clients who do recognise that it is a very different experience. I mean, the number of times, people get seen within 1 or 2 days of ringing up, the number of times you get your blood results through within 24 hours. That there is a huge range of stuff, and comments that go with it, like, God, I wish the doctors was this quick, and those kind of things. So there are a proportion of clients who do recognise that it's, but for those that don't, then, you really, you have to showcase yourself, because if you don't showcase yourself, nobody's going to see it.
Do you think we do a little bit too much navel gazing? I mean, aren't we? Veterinary practice is here for clients and their animals, not and certainly those of us that run what we hope is successful veterinary practices look after our staff, because it's the best way of looking after your clients. But do you think we do a little bit too much of worrying about what it is for us? Try and illustrate what I'm trying to get to a bit more. Our clients love looking at lives of service, as I would call them, and ours is one of them. And you know, if you look at the television screen, you can find stuff about the ambulance service, you can find stuff about the RNLI, you can find stuff about surgeons in hospitals. You know, you pick it, the lives of service, as it were, those people who choose a career because it's more than just the money you make out of it. It's about what you can do for people. And one of the ways I've found of making the team happier and making sure that I'm happy is to ensure that everybody's focused on what they can do to make everybody else's day a great day, less about what they can do to make their own day a great day. Because when you finish your day having worked really hard at making it a great day for everybody else, invariably I find it's a pretty good one for me too. Am I being old-fashioned?
No, you're not being old-fashioned, but I think we do also, and navel gazing is interesting, isn't it? And sometimes there's the rose-tinted, and you know what I came to before, the looking backwards. And we are very privileged to do what we do. It's hard to get into, and a lot of people don't get that chance. And it gives us a variety of career, but we're also human beings who have lives outside of work and want a fulfilling career and want a work-life balance. And we all have our own sort of personal purpose as well. So there's a lot to marry up in that. And we also have to accept that the ways that we work, the pressures on us as general practitioners or as specialists, as veterinary teams, is different than it used to be. The way we are thought of is different than it used to be. The humanization, particularly in pets, is different. The financial issues in farm is different. So I think we have to accept there's quite a lot of pressures on us. There's a retention and a recruitment out there. So I think we do need to accept it is different, and we have to evolve in the way that we work, and we have to make those changes, and making those environments the best place for people to thrive and to have those career progressions is important. So I don't think it's navel gazing. I think we have to be careful we don't end up in a spiral, and we feel that negativity and we speak that negativity because there's a huge amount of positivity. But I think we do have to accept times are changing. There are different stresses, and it's right that we review those and look at how, as a profession, we can move things forward. We can provide the right workplaces for now, which is different than when James Herriot was there. The needs and expectations of clients is different, and we accept those, and we work with the public. And so we do have things to do to move forward. So I don't think it's navel gazing, but I think it's right to address where we are and accept the good and the challenges.
Excellent, Gudrun. That was really helpful. Thank you. We are unbelievably, because we've been firing through this, we are coming to our closing minutes in a minute. So I'm going to ask Gudrun, that was brilliant from you. I'm going to go to Ian and then come to Kate and Alison quickly, and ask for some final thoughts, and then I'll start to wrap it up. Ian.
Yeah, no, wow. I mean, there's so much that we haven't talked to. I would just say that yes, being a GP vet is really what it's all about. It's why you go into practice in the first place. If you're the kind of, you know, I was motivated because you know, we had a dog, I loved animals, and I ended up doing what I really wanted to do. And as has always been said, it's an absolute privilege to do this job. And I wouldn't actually want to be a specialist. I wouldn't be doing the same things day in, day out. I actually love the breadth and the range and the different animals that I see, and all the different people as well. So to me, it's the best job in the world.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. That's really upbeat. Kate.
Sorry, lost the unmute button. I agree with Ian. I love it. I think it's a great profession. I think my strong feeling is, as I said right at the start, I think with the right support, I think we can encourage and we can retain some really good people in general practice. I think Gudrun's point on things are very different now. They are very different now. It's not 20 years ago. We're not, you know, vets coming through want different things. Everybody does have an individual approach. And I think there should be a real crossover between the team aspect, where everybody in the day wants to get through the day together and do the best care they can, but then there's the overlap of individuals' needs outside contributions outside commitments, and I think being able to marry all of those together with a central team, but to allow individuals their life, their work balance, to me I think it's achievable. It's hard work. It's a big thing how we've set up our practice, is getting that work-life balance, but encouraging staff to develop themselves with the least stress possible. I think it's achievable, and I think we've got a responsibility as general practitioners, as employers, to be able to really try and push that forward.
Okay, thank you so much. Alison.
Yeah, I think, you know, what we have to remember, I know tonight is predominantly about, you know, GPs and the fact that all of us on the panel are very passionate about the generalist pathway. It's the one most of us have chosen. I think what we do have to remember is that veterinary qualification, that veterinary nurse qualification that you have in your hand is an enormous passport to all manner of things. And whilst for probably still the majority, being in that generalist area is absolutely where our passion lies, there is equally no judgment if you choose to do something different with it, be that non-clinical, be that specialist, be that in teaching, in research, in whatever. I mean, there is an enormous list of possibilities we have. But focusing on the purpose of tonight from a generalist point of view, I think we owe it to ourselves within the generalist part of the profession to keep showcasing ourselves, to highlight why we think it is good, and to ensure from those that are employers of generalists that there is a structured form of recognition and reward, and that I'm not talking just financially there. You know, workplace culture, working conditions. You know, if any of those are suboptimal, you will not recruit and you will not retain people in that environment, because why would any one of us want to stay in an environment that was suboptimal? So, you know, maybe a little bit of self-reflection as to, you know, what situation we're creating for ourselves is required, and a bit of introspection to a degree, maybe not quite navel gazing, but you know, so some introspection is required, I think, on as well as, you know, looking outwards at opportunities.
Alison, thank you. Well, thank you very much indeed to the four panelists this evening. We could carry on this conversation, I know, for many hours. There's so much more to contribute to what we can do. The one thing I hope that you will all take away is that there's a huge amount of joy to be had in general practice, and it's maybe because we've sort of hide our light under a bushel, as it were, a bit, and we need to celebrate that more, as Gudrun said right at the outset of this. And it's making it very clear the huge satisfaction you can get from being brought into the human animal bond. It's that relationship. It's a huge honor to be brought in, and I know that all of us here will have felt that wonderful trust that is put in us by owners when they bring their very precious animals into us, and the vast satisfaction you can get from helping them, working with them, which it's very much now, to deliver a sort of optimal outcome, whether that be treating a puppy that's got a problem that we can resolve, or whether it be a very satisfactory and well executed euthanasia at the end, where everybody goes out of the room feeling that was done in the best possible way. So I'm absolutely delighted to be honoured to be a chair of the fellowship at the moment, and one of the things we're looking at is how we can recognise general practitioners, generalists as fellows. It's not easy just boiling down what it really means to be an expert generalist, as it were, but we are working really hard on that, and we'll continue to do so. And I do hope that everybody who's taken part in this conversation will take away from this that this wonderful career, and I genuinely do think it's a wonderful career. We need to boil down what it is that's so special about it, so that we can infuse those that are following us with the same sort of enthusiasm for it, and hopefully find that they have careers not just of 3, 4 or 5 years, but 30, 40 or 50 years. Thank you very much, all of you, and over to you, Deborah.
Thanks, Chris, and to the panel tonight. That now brings the session to a close.